Hey, Ron, how are you doing?
Yeah? Why? Okay, just a second. Sorry. It's cool. I know who it is. No, he won't. He knows better.
Like Brandon. Brandy's on my finger. How you doing? Good, how are you? Is this your toy? Right there. Al. Hey, how you doing there, girl? Test checked it. even ask him to help me.
I just do. I used to Billy ask him.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just remember to know what color it is.
Yeah, that'd be me. So, Frenchie, why do you want to hang around me?
Testing, sound check. Check 1, 2. Testing 1, 2. I think we're in pretty good shape. Can everybody hear that reasonably loud and clear? Good. I'm only a few laps down, but stay with me, folks. We were looking for Butch Jelly, Cal Thurston, and Doug Jackson, if any of them are in the house. I don't know. Doug's here. Okay, good. Thank you. And Cal's here. Okay, because we've got some goodies for you, too. Okay, there. That makes you feel better when you're getting ready to induct somebody and you wonder if they're in the crowd or not. Certainly this has been an overwhelming response, and we have kept our fingers crossed for a year, hoping that we'd get the weather so that obviously nobody had many excuses as to why they couldn't be here to enjoy such a super day, because this is our Super Bowl. And we're so proud and pleased to see so many of you, taking time out of your busy weekends to come and join us and celebrate, all the wonderful times that we had here at the Mid-State Speedway and area speedways around to honor such great people. I'm overwhelmed, and it's just amazing. I'd like to start the program with a national anthem, and I have a young lady from right here locally, high school student at Morris Central School, Cassie Boss, who will sing the national anthem. So if you'd please stand, and gentlemen, remove your hats. We'll hear from Cassie Boss. Ladies and gentlemen, Cassie Boss.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
How's that, ladies and gentlemen? Cassie Boss. Yep, high school student right here at Morris Central School. And always happy and excited to be able to do that. And we're certainly fortunate to have her available so that she can. So thank you so much, Cassie. And she has to run, so thanks again, Cassie. We appreciate it. I'd like to now call on Deacon Gary Norman, is that his name, from here in Morris, for a blessing, if he would, please.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to come together today for this convention and this ceremony for the Hall of Fame. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion. Allow us to grow closer as a group. and nurture the bonds of community. Fill us with your grace, Lord God, in any decisions we might make, and continue to remind us that all we do here today, all that we accomplish, is in the pursuit of fellowship with each other and for your greater glory. And at the close of the day, stay with us when we leave here and see us all safely to our homes again. All these things we ask in your name. Amen.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That was very nice. At this time, I'd like to call on Rick Perry. Rick Perry was instrumental in creating the Central New York Stock Car Hall of Fame with two others, Dave Conde and Mel Ogden, I do believe. So if Rick Perry would like to come up and say a few things, perhaps explain to some of these people how this craziness all got started.
Welcome and thank you. The Mid-State Antique Stock Car Club now is 34 years old. We started out with a handful of members in the preservation of race cars and to preserve the history. In the beginning, yes, we did race a little bit. In 2003, we went in another direction and we started a club called Show and Go. We participate at area racetracks, car shows, showing our cars to the public, the way they were built, and tell stories about the past racing and such great memories that we've had, and hope that their children will continue to carry on the preservation. At this present time, in 22 years, this Hall of Fame, we have 122 names etched on that trophy behind us. Some of the greatest drivers that ever turned a lap at this track, other tracks in Central New York, we've gone out of our way to put a smile on their face one more time. Our ultimate goal is someday be able to say that we accomplished what we have, and we have a long way to go. I would like to give a special thanks to our club members who worked so diligently putting this event on and went out of their way to make this another successful event. I hope you people enjoy the event today.
Thank you very much, Rick. It's been a lot of work, time, and effort to do this. And at this time, I want to start down the thank you list. And we all need to direct our attention towards that door right over there, because there stands Mike Newell. Ladies and gentlemen, he's the chairman of this Hall of Fame. He's had all the headaches, and believe me, there are plenty, as he has shared, to put this thing on. And without his work, time, and effort, I don't know that anybody else would be ready to step up to the plate to do it. And he always says, this is my last year. But I keep saying, no, it isn't. No, it isn't. You're going to continue on, buddy. We'll help you. We'll do as much as we can, but you're going to continue on. Okay. So Mike Newell deserves a lot of credit for all the work, time, and effort. Both he and his wife, who's out here selling 50-50 tickets, Debbie, they do a great job, and it's a year-round activity. It never stops. It's always on your mind, and you're always looking for this and looking for that, and so forth and so on. We need to, yes indeed, I think that's Mom calling to you. Everybody knows when Liz is in the house. We next need to certainly thank the folks from Gates Cole, insurance company that continue to provide us, and the Colonial Ridge Golf Course, who also have chipped to help in and obviously provide us with the funding that's necessary to purchase these beautiful plaques. One of the biggest elements is advertising. I mean, advertising takes all of your money in a hurry. And Mike said, I just can't believe what they get to put in a little blip, about the show and da-da-da-da-da-da. But it's the way it is. So if you're going to get the word out, you got to obviously try your best to advertise and to send flyers. And, this we have tried to do to the best of our ability. And we certainly need to thank Gates Cole Insurance and Colonial Ridge Golf Course at this time. Yes, indeed. They never hesitate, and they're always ready to help you out. I'd like to also thank the Otsego County Fair Board, because without obviously the Fair Board agreeing to having the show, we wouldn't be able to have the grounds. And so the Fair Board has been extremely supportive. They know, they understand the racing history that went on here from 1949 to 1973, and they're as proud of it as we are. So we want to certainly thank Doug Roberts, president now, and the Fair Board. They're over there working hard at providing hot dogs and hamburgers and soda. They volunteered to take care of the food booth for us. So the Otsego County Fair Board, for giving us an opportunity to use their facilities. They're building their grounds to have the Hall of Fame show. So once again, a hand for the Otsego County Fair Board. I know there's others in the house that, or others that I should be taking care of on this thank you list, but I have a special couple of thank yous to a couple of people that I know are here for the first time. Ones that I've encouraged to come, and I am just so excited that today they are here. Ladies and gentlemen, the Flying Milkman, Kenny Moore from Rome, Pennsylvania. Yep, there he is. Yes, indeed. I had seen Kenny race many times and never really had a chance to meet him until June when I took the 60X to the Kenny Moore Classic race at Skyline Raceway, and finally had the great opportunity to meet the man, and was overwhelmed, and had encouraged him to come to the Hall of Fame show. And his son Lee called and said, hey, we're coming. How do you get there again? And Kenny said he'd been here once and it was so dangerously dusty, he's still cleaning the dust out of his eyes. He said, I remember that place. So Kenny, thanks so much for coming. Yeah, I'm overwhelmed. We also have Pete Cortez in the house today, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know where he is, but he's here. He's on the grounds. Yep, Waldron's Flying Carpet, the number 68 and the 68 track champion from here, Pete Cortez, is on the grounds. I saw him in Sydney and I said, Pete, would you please come? And he said, I'll do everything I can. He said, there's been conflicts over the years, but this year I'll be doing everything I can to come. And he is here today. Thank you very much. We're going to go ahead and start the situation. Is Rick Perry still here? Is he still in the house? Because I have him on the list for wanting to say a few things for, unfortunately, members that have passed, sadly missed. I know that, you know, it's a sad, sad thing that any time and every time you either watch the news or buy a newspaper, it's almost a scary situation to look and see what you know, has happened, but unfortunately, well, we'll catch up with him later on. At this time, I'm going to ask, if I may, Albert Kohler, better known as Ace. Albert is the owner of the X-Car sitting out here. He's been a great long-time fan of Butch Jelly, and unfortunately, sadly, Butch is challenged with a few health issues, as I understand it, and was unable to make it today. But I'm going to call on Albert, if he would, come up here and accept the plaque for Butch Jelly. Albert's out of Hoosick Falls, New York, and he has a shop in Bennington, Vermont. These people were at a show yesterday and were able to bring the X-Car for your pleasure, replica of the Butch Jelly coupe that you may remember. And if you would like to say anything about Butch Jelly.
I'm honored to accept this plaque for Butch. I'm sorry he didn't show. When I got the car that I built, it was yellow, and it was an ice racer, and I thought for certain it was Butch Jelly's car, but it's not. And I just followed through, and I'm still building it, so.
We're very fortunate to have you, and thank you so much for accepting the plaque for Butch Jelly. I'll follow this up and make an effort to try to get Butch here next year so that you can see him and meet him and and so forth. So if you'd give that to him, we'd certainly appreciate it.
Yes.
And I called Butch and had a nice conversation with both he and his wife, and he said, "John, have they fixed the lights down there?" He said, "Fortunately, I was leading a feature," and he said, "I came off turn 4 and the lights went out." He said, "I couldn't see a thing, obviously." He said, "I was just glad I was leading." I just held on the wheel. He said, "It was just like somebody coming behind you and putting their hands right over your eyes." He said, "That was a scary moment." I'd never experienced that one in all the driving and the racing that he'd had. But yeah, he said that was really something. I'd also like to introduce at this time Cal Thurston, if he would come up here, please. I don't have a profile on Cal to read for you unless he's got one with him. Okay, all right. Well, maybe Cal can give you an idea. I've got a beautiful plaque here of his late model, number 30, right out front here in front of the grandstands. Ladies and gentlemen, Cal Thurston. If you'd like to say something.
Yeah, I'll say something. I got a lot to say, but I'm not going to say very much. First off, I want to say hi to all the kids that are here for me. Number one, I only raced here a couple of years, and I couldn't race when I did. I built a race car that probably wasn't safe to race, but I raced anyway. I got a couple of stories I'd kind of like to tell. One being, how many of you guys know Mitch Gibbs? How many knows Mitch Gibbs' father? Bobby Gibbs. We knew each other a little bit, and we were always raising hell in the pits. And one day we got the idea that we'd make a bet. So stupid me, I agreed with it. I was in the first heat, he was in the second heat. We were going to try to race without a helmet. And the guy that got through was going to get the other guy's winnings. I took it. It sounded like fun to me. I could use this money. He was always winning. I got about halfway through the first heat, and here come a guy out on the track with my helmet. Guess who? Mitch Gibbs. I wasn't getting his money. That's one story I had to tell. Now the other story is, I never won many races, never had a car worth winning many races with, but I got the chance to drive an old Studebaker by a guy by the name of Bill Newell built. I don't know where he got it from. All I can tell you is I know that he got a carburetor off the flats at Hotailings to make the thing run. And it was a pretty good race car. It run pretty good. Like I say, I never won many races, but I had a chance to win a feature this time. I come out of the fourth turn on the last lap, and I heard this great big roar. And I looked over beside me, and here's a guy by the name of Glenn Hawley with a Pontiac that was bigger than this building. And we finished in what they called a dead heat. And that's the only race I ever had a chance to win at Morris Speedway. It's good to be here. It's good to see a lot of old faces. Doug Jackson. I saw Fred Barsh. Fred Barsh used to have red hair. That's been a long time ago. Yeah. So it's good to see everybody. Ray Bunsey and I go back years and years and years. In fact, Ray and I bought a race car that Joe Norton owned. And we used to go to Penn Can on Friday night, 5 Mile Point on Saturday night, and if there was anything left, we'd come to Morris on Sunday. Yeah. And I also want to make mention of another well-known family that I've been associated with for years and years and years. When I was a kid in high school and we come over here, we used to see some great races. There was a guy by the name of Gordy Smith, a guy by the name of Kuzan Moose Carey. There was a whole bunch of them. Brent Cobb and everybody that we used to come over here just to watch. Well, I have been associated with Gordy Smith and his family ever since. And I want to tell you, the hands of racing in middle New York are in pretty good shape. Gordy raced, his brothers raced. I owned a car that Tiger drove for quite a few years. I helped Gordy's son get started in racing, Rusty. He's pretty successful today. And Gordy and I, we won what? 2 track championships at what was the old Shangri-La Speedway. The first year that we bought a modified, we won a track championship in Shangri-La and never won a race. That's a pretty good accomplishment. And we're still proud of that. Yeah. And now the hands of racing are still in pretty good shape because Gordy has got a grandson that looks like he's going to be a pretty good racer. Okay. I want to say in conclusion, I've had a great time. I only spent a couple of years here at Mid-State, but I have great memories of the place. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Cal. Great job. Thank you.
Oh, I got one other thing to say. There's a guy standing in the back door back there. I can remember, I think, when he was in diapers. Because we used to go over to Bill Newell's and work on race car, and he was just about that age when I got to meet him.
Thanks again, Cal. Now, there you have it. Those are priceless stories. I'm telling you, it's just amazing when I have a chance to see and talk to some of these people. And the next person that's going to speak up here is a man that's got a lot of words about Mid-State Speedway. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you Bobby Hoffman. Bobby, here he comes. With one of my favorites of all time, Buzzy Rudiman t-shirt on. And I brought a couple original pieces of Buzzy's out there, the door and the trunk lid off old Bess. There you are, Bobby.
Hello, hello. Pet peeve of mine is, who doesn't have a 50-50 ticket? You better get one, because last word I heard, the pot's over $500. Do you believe that? So that means somebody's going to get half of that. I believe the other half goes to help keep the club going. But I was the next to the last track reporter at Mid-State Speedway, and boy was I glad to get rid of that job. Because back then, no fax machines, no recording, and my wife hated typing the things up Sunday night, and it really messed me up because I always liked to go to Morris Inn afterwards and see all the race car drivers and have a few beers with them. So instead of talking about that, because my CRS is the only thing that works good anymore, I'm going to tell you about 60 years ago and growing up in this little jerkwater town. So you got to bear with me. 60 years ago, I'm 9 years old, 10 if I'm lucky, and I lived up on Route 49, and that's where Willie Wilson and all those guys went by all the time. But before Sunday afternoon races, there was Saturday. What are you doing on Saturday? Well, you go down to your neighbor's, Brent Cobb's house, quarter mile down the road, half mile, and to play. Well, before you can play, first thing I do is barn chores. Anybody remember, any of you guys ever had a little farm? Well, they had a little farm. Well, part of the farm was clean the mangers, and then his father backed the spreader in. So guess what the next job was? You didn't push a button then, you pushed a shovel. And we used to be on opposite sides of the spreader. So about halfway through cleaning them gutters, half of it was in the spreader, the other half was on us. So that's the way it went sometimes. So sometimes we were nice to each other. Didn't throw full shovels full. Okay, now, got that all done. You wanted to go in the house for soup and sandwiches. Stop right here at the back door. Get them clothes off. Come in on your t-shirt and underwear. Have so soup and sandwiches if you're lucky. Get done with that. TV time. Rin Tin Sky King, the Three Stooges. Back outside for can racing. Now, what the hell is can racing? It's soup cans, tomato cans, and a tuna fish can, which was for Stitch Mariano, his little chopped down car. So what do? You line them up at the bottom of the silo, pick out which car is yours, which car is his, and you throw rocks at them, knock him out of the race. Worked good. A lot of fun. Then, bing. Okay. Jump ahead. Another couple of years. Go down to Brent's on Saturday. Bicycle racing around the house. 10 lappers, 20 lappers, 50 lappers. Brent had a nice shiny chrome Schwinn at least twice a year. He'd get spun out somehow, smack that tree, bend them fenders all to hell. Every year. Okay, now we're going faster. I'm going to get my notes here. And then a little bit further down the road, 14, 15, I got to be real good friends with the people on the Morris Inn. So my mom and dad kind of lived in the Morris Inn. I grew up there, living there too. But the first thing we had to do Sunday mornings, when you guys were all in church, you good people, we were at the Morris Inn. Dad was having a cup of coffee and then brown bottle coffee, you know. And Oscar and I had to fill all the coolers up before we could get out and come to the races. So by 12:30, we had the coolers all full. Run like heck down the races, watch them. Run like heck all the way back. That was when I was still young. I could see Willie Woos and the gang come into the Morris Inn. When Gene Cole was racing then, and later was Moose. And you know how much beer you guys could drink from 5:30 at night to 7:30, 8 o'clock? Would you believe 20, 25 cases of beer? Not just those guys, everybody. But us kids were just hustling from the cooler downstairs to keep them coolers full. And then we made king-size roast beef sandwiches, tuna fish sandwiches. Everybody loved them because Ann made sure you got a good sandwich when you ate there. Okay, now I'm back to 13 years old, helping Doug Hoig and his brother Weeder with an A or B class car. And it says, you want to race a mechanics race? I said, oh boy, yeah, I'll try that. So got my dad to lie my age and sign a waiver. So we're out there. I think I started last, or damn close to it. And I said, well, what do I do? He said, well, put it in second gear and leave it there and stomp on it. So that's what we did. Round and round we went. And the wholly scariest thing about the whole mess, I finished third out of like 6 cars, was coming into the fourth turn, just cranking it to the corner, and here's a fuel tank right in the middle of the track. But we missed it. I'm here to tell you, we missed it. Now, what's up next? Oh, and I also learned that if you're going to race, you have to learn to breathe. You can't just hold your foot on the carburetor and steer. You got to breathe a little bit. Because a lot of times you can't make a whole lap without taking a breath. My favorite drivers back then? Let's see. Maynard Smith. Anybody remember that dude? Big, burly, husky guy. Rode number 1. Then I realized after later on, he didn't run Mid-State anymore. He snuck off to Fonda on Saturdays, which I couldn't get to. There was a pair of Schultz brothers out of Richfield area. Bill, Gil, and Jerry. Well, my favorite was Bill with a 21. Nice car, nice driver. And I remember he passed away a year or so ago. He was a very much decorated World War II vet. Really good. Now some funny names some of you probably never heard of. Barney Barnard, Bob Barney. Those are guys that names really dig back to remember. But then, jump forward to 1966, senior in high school. My brother's home from the Air Force. Hey, brother, you're going to help me? They're going to have a figure 8 class, and I want to do it. Okay, we did it. We got out there, going around and around, and it was fun till they took it off the small track and ran the big track, and then you go across the X. Now you're doing 50 miles an hour. That was a little hairy and scary when you're 18 years old. But I did win one heat. The heats then, you used the oval, didn't cross the X. And guess how much I got for winning that heat race? $3. I should have saved that check. I don't know why, but it burned a hole in my pocket. I had to cash that. Back then at 18, you could get a beer, you know. Oh, now what's up? Oh, I got to tell you one episode. We lived just a mile and a half up the road. So how do you get your car to the track? Well, you tow it with a chain, naturally. You don't hook up to nothing. But one day in the middle of the week, brothers working on a car with me. We decided to try it out a little bit. So he wanted to run it down the hill. I said, okay, well, I'm going with you. So I climbed in there, and we had no windshield or no screen or anything. So, and I couldn't get comfortable sitting in the back, so I'm going to stand up right through the windshield. Well, we got going down the hill and got up to about a little out of second gear, and somebody forgot to latch the hood. And guess what happened? By the time I ducked, I was in the back seat. But that hood drove me all the way to the back seat of that car. I don't know if I ever recovered from it or not, but now what have we got here? Not too much on Track Reporter. I never had no any kind of training on that, and it was hard to get access to the score sheet, so I had to put all the races together in my head after I got home. And now, where are we? My wife just hated it because I wrote it down, and she couldn't stand me typing, and so she hunt and pecked and did it and get it all ready so it could be in the mail by Monday morning to get to the Gator News. And I was replaced by Mike Monet. That was good for me. I was happy to go. And I got one other race that I want to talk about. One was a fireman up in turn 3 before I got to be a track reporter. We were up there, and it was a heat race. And it was Jerry Wisnowski and a couple other cars. Well, we were in the third turn. You could hear them full bore racing come down that third turn. In the first 3 laps, every time the guy that was on the inside, Wisnowski, was trying to get around the outside, the guy on the inside used Wisnowski for his rub rail. So we kept on going. Well, about the 4th lap, here they come, down the back stretch, hell bent for leather, went into the third turn. Wisnowski hit the brakes. He slid out in front of him. Wisnowski drove him right in the back fender, spun him right around, rolled him up in the infield. And you could say I probably didn't like Wisnowski after that, but the guy said, he brought out his own headache. But that's the way racing was back then sometimes here in the little old town. End of the feature. Don't forget your 50-50 tickets.
Yeah, never a dull moment when you got Bobby Hoffman in the house. Yeah, he wrote many articles about Morris and Mid-State Speedway for the Gator News, and he was also an avid Billy Wimble fan. And you'll typically see him at the racetrack, up Utica Rome especially, Sunday nights. Yeah, he's still up there challenging himself. We rounded up Rick Perry, and Rick is going to give to us a little silent prayer for some past members. Rick?
I'd like to take a minute for a silent prayer for some past deceased members of our Hall of Fame and other people that were true to our heart. Gordy Eastman, Jerry Wisnowski, Fran Kelly, Bob Chick, Carl Kamagay, Harold Sonnenberg, Marianne Isman, Ron Cook, Stub Stevens, Jim Wood, Nancy Schoonover, Irv Taylor, Willie Whiteman, and last Tuesday we lost one of our former B-class drivers, William Larrabee. Yesterday there was a plane crash that took the life of a NASCAR modified champion. Teddy Christopher and his pilot perished in the crash. So at this time I'd like to have a moment of silence in their memory. Thank you very much.
In addition, special request to have the Great 3X here today. The former car that was owned by the late Smokey Joe Norton, who perished recently here in a horrible car accident down on Route 7. And I know that Jeff and Joe Jr. are here today. Sadness, but we've lost Smokey Joe Norton. At the funeral, I was able to tell 2 stories. Excuse me for choking up, but he was a great buddy of mine. One of the stories was when I was 12 years old, 11 or 12, and I sat up here in the stands and I heard Smokey Joe Norton driving the 3X. And as a little kid, I thought, Smokey Joe, why do they call him Smokey? And so I had to run down to the chain link fence and look. Sure enough, there's a man out there getting ready to drive a stock car with a stub cigar in his mouth. I said, that's kind of funny to think that a man can go out there and race a stock car and smoke a cigar at the same time. And I know there's been others, but that sure was something peculiar to me at age 11. And then I also shared the story of when we kids were probably 12, 13, I don't know. We used to take our bicycles down to Sydney on Saturday mornings. And first place we wanted to go to was the Western Auto on Cartwright Ave, because they had a beautiful display of bicycle accessories and so forth. Then we'd run over to the car wash. Sydney was one of the first power car washes in the area. For 25 cents, you could wash your car. Well, we used to line up our bicycles and wash them off with that pressure washer thing. Boy, that did a nice job. Then we'd leave and go over to Doug D'Imperio's Subs, and buy a submarine sandwich on Main Street, right next to the Landers Funeral Home. After that, we'd take the sandwich over the river and go to the Esso station, because we knew Smokey Joe Norton would give us a soda. He always felt that it was kind of neat that these guys would ride all the way from Gilbertsville on bicycles to Sydney to come and see him. And so we'd show up, and he'd sure enough give us a soda. We'd have our submarine sandwiches, and he'd show us, always had time for us. Always would show us the car, and we could sit in it and look at it and so forth. Even caught one time Tom Toomey painting the numbers on the car, and that was a special event, very special event. Smokey Joe Norton always had time for you, and it just pleased me to be able to, have such a great friend for all these years. The last time I think I saw him, I was at Chambers and O'Hara car show. He had a show in the spring of the year, and I took the Wimble Coupe down there. And as I set up all the memorabilia and so forth, and a few minutes later, here comes this Buick LeSabre. And I look over, and sure enough, there he is. And he said, "Come here." And I walked over and I said, "Hey, Joe, how you doing? Good to see you, blah, blah, blah." He said, "I want you to know that I only came to the car show to see what junk you bring down here." I said, "Okay. Well, thanks so much for coming, Joe. Appreciate the support." But my heart's out to the Norton family, and I want to thank John Clark for bringing the 3X, Old Nellie. That's the original piece, folks, driven by Benny Stevens, sitting out there with some trophies on it that came right from the Norton residents that were won with that car. So thanks again, everybody, for listening. And the Norton family. Wow, what a family. At this time, I'd like to ask Gary George. Now, most of you know him as AJ, because you've seen so many race cars that said "Signs by AJ." Ladies and gentlemen, we have AJ in the house today, and he'd like to speak on some for a few people for us. So, Gary? You're welcome. My pleasure.
Okay, what a nice crowd today. This is great. Love seeing y'all. I've met a lot of people I hadn't seen in a long time. I've got the honor of speaking a little bit, and I'm going to keep this short because if you've ever talked with Ron Narducci, and my first interview with him, I called him Ron Narducci because a lot of the announcers called him that. I got a stern lecture from him in the interview. I said, boy, this interview is going to go really well. But Ron Narducci, I'm going to tell you just a couple stories. Is Chuck Brownwell here? Okay, I'm going to want you up here. Okay? Oh, yeah, I talked to you already. Yeah, if you want to get up in the staging area here, we'll get you up here. You're going to accept the award and have the trophy, the other trophy. But anyways, Chuck's coming up here now. Ron Narduzzi, you know, when I did an interview with him about a year ago, I had somebody ask me a question. He said, well, why are you interviewing somebody like that? This guy he run way in the back. I said, well, let me tell you something. I learned a lot from him. He run these 100-mile, 200-lap endurance races with the NASCAR modified cars all up and down the East Coast, chasing points. And I said, you know, you were always a top 5, I used to watch you. As that race progressed, all of a sudden he's 12th, and then he's 10th, and then all of a sudden he's running 4th or 5th, and he just kind of rides it out to the end. I asked him why, because I think he had equipment that could have won a race. Well, he said, when you do this for a living, and he was for many years, racing stock cars, he said, you got to put bread on the table and, you know, trophies, as my good buddy Joe Donahue told me you can't eat trophies. So we're going to make some money. And Ron was quite a talker. He was very personable. He could not be here today, unfortunately. He has moved to South Carolina. He's in the process of getting that move done. But I will guarantee you, he told me, and I'm going to go get him if I have to, he will be here next year for this event, and he'll get a delayed trophy. Now, where's Chuck? Let's get him up here. He's got some stories, probably better ones than I know, a good friend of Ron, and I'll let him do a little talking, and we'll do the presentation.
Leo, would you come up also? I understand you're going to get the presentation. Yeah. I first met Ron Narduzzi back in the early 80s. Lived in Waterloo and had started racing at Ovid Speedway when he was at Sampson Air Force Base. Proceeded to run Waterloo Speedway with Bob Rogers 5N, and then transferred over after the service down to Connecticut to work for his father-in-law, and eventually turn into a full-time racer. As Gary said, you know, it's not easy. There's 2 stories that I can tell for Ron that really stick out in my mind, and I'm going to say it was sometime in the 70s. He was racing the Stafford Springs Speedway, flipped upside down, slid the whole length of the backstretch on his roof. Got him out of the car, and he had some broken ribs and everything else. Well, lo and behold, he was supposed to run Fonda the next night. Couldn't get the car fixed, but he shows up at Fonda. Gets up in the announcer's booth somehow. Come to find out, Ron had taken his wife's corset and strapped his ribs so he could get to the races that night. Didn't go to doctors, but he had the remedy. The other part is when I first met him was in early 80s, drove by this house out in Waterloo on 96A, and his coupe sat there, kind of rusted out and stuff, you know, and of course all these race people have to stop and say about it. So I go up to the door and knock on it, you know, and I said, well, there's a coupe out there. He goes, yeah, it's my coupe. It's just to race it. And then, well, if you don't mind, I mean, I never met the guy. I said, who are you? He's Ron Narduzzi. And it's like, okay, here I go. I'm about ready to pass out. And it's like, this is Ron Narduzzi. He's famous, you know, and he's talking to me here again, back in the 70s. So lo and behold, he had the coupe. No one wouldn't sell it. I'm going to fix it up. I'm going to race it. He's going up to Vermont to his in-laws. His father-in-law's retiring. He's got a small engine repair shop, and he's going to take it over. Guess what? Coupe goes on the trailer. Coupe goes up to Vermont. Knew where he was because I also co-hosted the Waterloo Banquet for a number of years, and Ron would come down. Lived in Ascutney, Vermont. I was up there on a business trip, vacation with my wife, and we're coming down through Vermont, and of course, here's a sign that says Ascutney, Vermont. Wait a minute, I got to take this turn. Well, I'm just going to go down and see the town. Well, we know how this all turns out. Stop at the gas station. You know Ron Narduzzi? You know where he lives? Well, I think he lives up in this road or whatever, and everything else. Okay, we're going down this dirt road, and my wife's screaming, you know, you're going to get us lost. I got the GPS, don't worry. Well, yeah, but I just give me a few minutes. We'll see what's going on. Come up over the crest of this hill, and I knew he had a log cabin. Log cabin sits up to the thing. right next to the barn. Here's the coop again. Took it all the way to Vermont, never fixed it, moved back to Waterloo, brought it back. And if you want to see that coop, go out to Route 318 because it's sitting there with a lot of other gas pumps and everything else that it hasn't been finished yet. So Ron is a very, very, very wonderful guy, and I'll be back up to induct John McCardle in a few minutes.
As I said, Ronnie couldn't be here today, so he sent a little message down here. And it says, greetings to all attendances and induction ceremonies of the Central New York Stock Car Racing Club. Okay. All right. Due to existing circumstances, I am unable to attend. I am extremely honored to be chosen as an inductee. I would like to congratulate all the other inductees to being chosen for such an honor. I have raced against most of the guys at one time or another and respect them as great drivers, especially John McCardle, who stole the feature away from me at Rolling Wheels during my last few years of racing, of my driving career. He earned it. Best wishes to all of you, and I will try to be at the next year, God willing. Ron Narducci.
Okay, I got one other comment I want to say real quick. Ron told me his proudest moment in racing was this here, the All-Star Racing League. Anybody remember that? He ran every race, and he won 2 league championships at, I believe, with Fonda. So I just wanted to bring that up because I'd forgot about it. Okay, let's do the presentation. I'm sorry.
Here I have the plaque, Central New York Stock Car Hall of Fame, Mid-State Speedway, Morris, New York, Ron Narducci, September 17th.
Hold on, trophy. Grant Buck, if you would come up here, please. Grant Buck, report to the front. Amy's Checkered Flag Bar, I know we're not supposed to advertise here, up in Waterloo, if you're ever up there, what a place. She donated this 1954 trophy that Ron won as the track champion. So I'd like to have, is Leo and Chuck still here? Yeah. Can you come up here real quick and they do a picture, and then we'll get on to the next. You can take a look at that. If I ever lose that trophy or even break it, I was told the consequences would be severe. 1956, track champion at Waterloo, New York. That's his trophy. All right, where's Leo? Leo's coming. Let's just get a quick picture and we'll get going. Move this program right on. Okay, watch it. Look that way, this way. That guy right there. Give that to Bev. Yep, okay, let me get off here.
Well, thank you very much. That's always great. Got a few advertisements to do, a few commercials. First off, this just in, the 50/50 is now close to $500. So if you didn't get a 50/50 ticket and you'd like to, as Bobby Hoffman said, you can't win it unless you're in it, and somebody's going to go with a pocket full of dough. So see these beautiful ladies that are sitting right out here, all right, because we're close to the last call on the 50/50. We also have a commercial about T-shirts, and if you'd like a T-shirt, gentleman set up down here with a tent set up so that any particular special T-shirt that you would like to have, in addition to, I believe, the ones for today. If you want a picture of you standing next to the car, any of these cars that are out here, they can do that and arrange to have that put on a T-shirt for you. So he's here today, he's ready, and if you want it, There it is. We've got that ready for you. So let's, yes, indeed, move on. It's not getting any cooler, is it? At this time, I'd like to call on, let's see, Mike Newell has a few things that he'd like to say. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, this is the chairman of this Hall of Fame show that lays awake nights for, I'd like to say days, but it's probably weeks and months about this particular day. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Newell.
Good afternoon. Appreciate everybody being here today. A lot of smiley faces. We used to give out a special award called the Don Phoenix Award for people that did whatever in racing and raced and worked on cars, whatever it may be. And this man is long overdue. He's been in this racing stuff for, I don't know, since the 50s, 60s, 70s. What? You can't hear me? I can't yell like you. Anyway, he has been around a long time. He's still doing it. He's very active. And I think he can still man a car pretty well. So would Jeff Ackerman step forward here? Where's Jeff? Jeff? I'm going to hand this over to Jeff, and he'll finish this up. He thought he was, yeah, here you go, Jeff. Jeff Ackerman, everybody.
Is this thing on? Good afternoon. I've got about 15 or 20 pages here written, so are you all comfortable? I want to thank all of those who made this day necessary. That's exactly what Yogi Berra said once in gratitude to those in attendance to a Yogi Berra night, and it couldn't be more appropriate for this setting. And that's because the reason we're here today is because of all of you in the audience. This club and this event was created to honor the memories of former drivers, such as yourselves, as well as the joy and camaraderie of stock car racing. Don Phoenix, have you got the next slide? Beautiful. There. Yeah, that one's good. There's Don Phoenix right there, and he's given the American flag to Gene Cole, and he would take that around during the race, the beginning of the race. And Don was one of us. He flagged and photographed racers here at Midstate during the 50s and 60s, and the racing bug coursed through his veins just as it does ours. He was dedicated to the success of the track and the sport, and we honor him yearly with this Pioneer Award, which in the past has been bestowed upon two of my personal heroes, Willie Woost and Cliff Kateri. Today's Pioneer Award goes to another one of my heroes who, until now, didn't know he's being honored. His racing bug took hold as a teenager in a trip to 5 Mile Point where he saw Monk Rao run roughshod over the competition. By the time he was 16, he and some friends convinced local garage owner Hermie Strain to donate a 41 Ford Coupe to their racing cause, and the V8 Tomato Juice Special was born. And that should let the cat out of the bag. You can put the next slide up, Gary. Put the next slide up. That's good. That's Don again. We can go one more. One more slide. There we go. Thank you. The crew tow-barred the car from New Berlin to Morris and Brookfield Speedways with a GMC pickup that often needed the push provided by the fired-up V8 stock car to make it over the hills. Engines were obtained from Burdine's junkyard and Morris Turnpike for $15, and my father told me he would pull one and slide it into the trunk of his car with a plank. They looked for the 90-horse 21 stud engines because they revved better. That fall, when he was 16 in high school, he played football, and he was in a game against Afton. He was being recruited at that time by Colgate College as a junior in high school to play football. But he got his leg broken in that game against Afton on a freak tackle. He never saw it coming. And anyways, long story short, the leg never set right, and he had to go to Syracuse. It got gangrene, and he lost his leg. So he never got to play football again. He did play basketball, but he told me when he came out of the hospital then that he decided right then and there that he was never going to let the loss of his leg stop him from doing anything that he wanted to do. And he didn't. So anyways, the following year, he continued to race. The V8 crew replaced the 41 coupe body with a two-door and had some success at Brookfield. Gene Cole took it to a second place at the Brookfield Fair. And later on, he got done racing with the V8 team. He went over to work with Willie Woost, and they built the 43, the Gene Cole, the green 43 that you see out here. And then after that, of course, they built the Mouseville Monster that Otto Graham, who's here today, he lettered that car. And Curzon Kerry won a championship with it right here at this track. And then after that, they went on to overhead engines and ran a number 88. And they ran that through 1968. And then in 68, the price of racing got pretty expensive, so they got out of it. They decided they couldn't do it anymore, raised the family for 15 years. And then in 1983, this orange number 88 that you see out here today was the first car that was built for this stock car club. And it was at the New Berlin Youth Days. And we saw it there and we said, geez, that's a good idea. And Ralph Rast had restored that car. We said, man, that's a really good idea. And we started a club. And that was 1983. And at that time, we decided to restore cars. We weren't really into racing them, but what we did it for was to honor the people that used to race. And that's why the club started. That's why we have this event here today. So since 1983, he has been doing nothing but building cars, finding cars, and putting cars in the club. At one time, we counted a dozen cars that we either had built or put in the club that were racing with us. I know it's awful warm today, and I want to get through this quick. But I have to say that the determination he's had all these years, he's never felt that there was anything that we couldn't fix. And I want to just illustrate that with a little story. One day I was underneath the 43, and I can't really remember exactly why, but we had to pull the starter. And the starter was working fine, but we had to get it out of the way to do something else. So I crawl under the car, and my father says to me, he says, now be careful. It's real easy to pull the cover off that starter. And it's a good starter. And yeah, no problem. I got it. And I immediately crawl under the car and pull the cover right off of that starter and pull it right apart. And so he looks at it, and I'm looking at it, and I said, well, we got another half a dozen starters in the van up in the woods. Let's just go get another starter. No, we're going to fix this starter. And it was a day like today, warm, and we're in a little one-holer shop with no ventilation. And Thomas, my brother, is there, and he doesn't sweat, but he's sweating. And I'm there, and I always sweat, and I'm sweating. And Dad's there, and he's sweating, and there's 6 hands and 4 screwdrivers down in this starter. And every time we get close to getting the starter to put the armature into the case, one brush falls out. And we try it again, and another brush falls out. And this went on for 45 minutes. And it's starting to it's getting close. We're getting frustrated. And we try it one more time, and there's a brush out. And Tom and I step back from the bench, and my father snatches that starter off the bench and lifts it up over his head like this and spikes it into the ground so hard that it bounced. His feet came off the ground, and he reaches back to the heavens with his fist clenching and goes, I can't fix this effing starter. And Thomas and I walk out of the shop and all the way around to the back of the shop and look at each other and burst out laughing because it was so hilarious. You had to be there to see it. But we couldn't laugh in front of him, especially right then. We didn't have helmets on, So anyways, after about 3 minutes of, doubled over, tears in our eyes, laughing, my father comes out and says, so you want to go up and get another starter? So he did. And well, just one more story about him. I mean, he's dedicated, he has done numerous car shows in the winter where we're taking cars. I can remember going to Syracuse and it's like 10 below zero and we're trying to get the cars off the trailer. Mel Ogden was there that night. His car wouldn't come off the trailer because the transmission was froze. And we got our, you know, we did, this stuff went on and on and on. I could write a book about trying to get back from the tracks, you know, in the evenings when something breaks down. But regardless, so for the last 35 years, he was a president, and he supported the club. He'd do anything he could to promote the club. And I mean, that kind of dedication just doesn't, it's extraordinary. Recently, a couple of Jehovah's Witnesses showed up to the house, and he always has them in. And they're talking to him. There's two ladies at the kitchen table, and they're talking to him about religion. And when they got done talking to him about religion, my father said, he said, "You see that number 34, that coupe poking out of the garage right there?" And they said, "Yes." And he said, "That's my religion." And that's kind of how he has been. I mean, it's more than an obsession. It's, you know, it's been a way of life. I'd have to say I want an honorable mention must go to my mother for putting up with this for the last 60 years. She, there was always a sandwich waiting for us or a meal or, you know, how did you do at the races when she knew we didn't do well. Sarcastic remark. But anyways, he has been as dedicated as Don Phoenix ever was, and there's nobody that I can think of that's more deserving of this honor than my father, Richard Ackerman. You want to give me a hand, Mom? Yeah, you want a camshaft? I got a camshaft. That's a $10 trophy I found at Norwich this year.
This is a replica of one of our very first cars. It was called the Tomato Juice Special. This is a complete surprise to me. I should have realized when she made me get a haircut a couple days ago that something was up. And even more amazing, my son got a haircut. But we've been in this, well, before we raced here in probably 1956 with the V8 car, and then on with Willie Woost and with the 43 and the 88, and then we got out of racing until the Mid-State Club started in, I think, 83. There was 5 of us that started, and we've got 2 of those cars, the original cars here today, of the original cars that started the club. I think you've heard the history of it. You've heard a little history. It doesn't sound like I'm very religious, but I do believe in God, and I do go to church. Occasionally. If there's no races on, yes. But this has been a big surprise to me, and I'm very humble, and almost made me cry. And that's good. Thank you. This plaque that they gave me, I just saw it. That was my first feature win, and I'd say 85 or 86. at Brookfield at the Madison County Fair. I won the fair in the 43 car that's right out here. And that was my first feature win. I'd say, what, 40 years ago?
Yeah, 30
yep.
so.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, that's fun. I got a quickie about Dick Ackerman. When he was the president of the club, we went to a show. I'll leave the track's name silent. But at this particular place, typically at most places, the agreement was that if you brought a car, you got in with another person for nothing. And you raced, and originally we got $1,200, and how many guys showed up? You divvied up the money, and there you are. It was pretty much enough to pay for the gas to get you to and from. So Utica Rome, you get $30. Drive all the way to Can-Am, you'd get $40. Wasn't bad. All of a sudden, we're at a racetrack one Saturday night, and a whole bunch of vintage cars sitting outside the racetrack weren't going in the gate. I thought, that's kind of odd. What's the problem? Did they cancel us? So I walk up and paid and went on in. And here comes Dick walking out. And I said, what's up? What are these guys? He said, John, those guys out there don't have enough money to pay the pit pass to get in, so I got to go pay for them to come in so that they can race with us. He was going to take money out of his own pocket to pay for those guys that were lined up out there so that they could come in and run with us. Pretty interesting situation. But our hats off certainly to Dick Ackerman and the Ackerman family, always ready to help and assist. Go anywheres that you want to go, typically at any time. And many times, as you know, Dick's connection with the Dakin Funeral Home in New Berlin, even when he's had a situation there, he's still been able to at least bring a car. Here it is. I've got to run and go do a funeral, but there's the car. I'll be back. So our hats off to the Ackerman family, and thank you so much for all the work, time, and effort you've put into it. At this time, I'd like to call up, ladies and gentlemen, boy, we have so many great people in this room, honest to God. Ron Hedger, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm a little out of breath. I don't know if I can talk. All the time Jeff was going on, I'm thinking, oh my God, the fool's got a starter in that cardboard box. I feared he was going to hit his father with the old starter trick. Jeff gave me some advice. He said, don't let that out of your sight because somebody will take it home. I was at the Saratoga Auto Museum the other day. I'm the racing curator there. I'm a trustee. I write the press releases. I MC the events. But one of the most popular things I've got is the jacket wall. I have about a dozen up at a time. I've probably got 50 or 60 in the collections room. So I take them down and put them up. Jeff and I are trying to decide when that was built. Does anybody recognize it? Jeff's thinking about 1960. If anybody knows, I'd love to know. Somebody just came along and gave it to me at the museum.
Come on, Bobby Hoffman, you ought to know. No? Pete, what do you think? No? Don't recognize that.
Yeah. I've got bad news for you. It's going home with me. I usually start off museum events with a trivia contest. So let's go. I got 4 tickets for the Auto Museum. You can use them anytime. A bit of advice from an old codger. Use them for lost speedways. The Saturday after Thanksgiving, my trick line is, the women go shopping, the men come to the museum for lost speedways. Which is a lie, because a lot of ladies come too. But it reminds everybody it's always the same day every year, Saturday after Thanksgiving. I figure you can never go wrong with a Dutch Hogue question. Are you ready? Dutch Hogue's Valiant. You remember that? Beautiful car. The last the Dutch had it, Lee Osborne laid it on the side in the ditch down to Langhorne. Dutch took it home, fixed it up, and sold it. Who bought it? Okay, over here. Andy Romano. He ruled the CVRA with that for a couple of years until he rolled it over and the roll cage collapsed, and then he found out how light it really was. So Chuck's got one coming. Ronnie Narducci. You can't go wrong with a Narducci question. The 1968 All-Star League. Fonda. League champions. Who were his two teammates? Wimble was not one. You got to give me both. You're half right. Lou Lazaro was one of them. Nope. You got to think about who's asking this question now. Because I was the mechanic on the other guy's car. There you go. Come on up. There you go, Dave. Come and see us. Bring the wife. She can always go shopping in Saratoga. Help the economy.
And I was cheering for that 16 inch.
We had a Joe Norton observation here. My brother drove for Joe Norton for a long time, my brother Randy. This is an asphalt question. Who did my brother drive for before he drove for Joe? No. Who said Tony Vecchio? There you go.
That's Ted Schmidt.
He drove for Tony Vecchio. His proudest moment was he beat Richie Evans in a 100-lapper at Spencer to make his first ever feature win. Okay, here's a question for the dirt guys. Pepper Eastman drove for my father for a long time. Number 181. Pepper always said the good thing about it is if you're upside down, it still reads okay. Everybody knew him as Pepper Eastman. Somebody's got to tell me his first real name. Who said Walter? Our man from Sangerfield. Thanks, guys. Use the tickets wisely. Come down and see us. If you didn't win one, come anyway. I filled the museum up. It's shoulder to shoulder. We get about 300 people in there. This year, I'm going to talk about Syracuse in the 50s and 60s. My brother Randy, who just retired from NASCAR, is going to come and talk about all the things he took away from everybody and all the cheaters he caught and so on and so forth. He's got some great stories. One of the speakers is going to talk about 1967 across the nation. That was a great year in racing. And then I always do an interview session. I'm going to talk to Randy Ross, who Billy Decker drove for when he won Syracuse, and Dickie Larkin, who was one of the great guys at Syracuse. He loved Syracuse. Quite often he went home with his car wadded up like a ball of tinfoil. But he loves Syracuse, so he's going to be on the docket. Jeff called me up, wanted to know would I come back and talk. I was here last year and told a bunch of Bobby Hackle stories. So I said, sure, but what do you want me to talk about? He said, I don't know. You know, Jeff's got a lot of wisdom. He thought a minute and said, talk about your family. I said, well, that's a crazy idea. Who wants to hear about my family? But he made the point that we're a pretty typical family that turned out pretty well in the auto racing business. Going back to my father when he started racing, Back in the late 40s, midgets were the deal. And then a track like this, once a year at the fair, they'd have big cars. What Tom Schmery would tell us is a sprint car. That was a big deal. They had one race a year. But then the stock car craze hit. And like a lot of other car guys, my dad went to the races, came home, talked to his two buddies, we ought to build a car. Okay. So they build it. The next question is, who the hell is going to drive it? Well, one guy, his wife wouldn't let him, and the other guy was scared to death, so my father was the driver. And that started the whole ball of wax rolling. He had a great sponsorship. He worked in a Chrysler dealership. He got a dedicated stall. He could use all the equipment in the garage. And the part I liked, if he wanted to flat tow it, which everybody flat towed in those days, with a car off the used car lot, he could use any car that had a trailer hitch on it. So when a car got traded in, we always checked it out. My favorite memory, going to Lafayette, up and down the mountains by Cazenovia, a black Chrysler with Scotch plaid upholstery. I'm telling you, that was living. But he raced all over, Brewerton, Oswego, tried Fonda once, didn't like it. Brookfield was the main place. I got a picture of him on the outside of the field, which was about 5 wide at Smyrna. Rocks the size of a basketball getting thrown in the air. But he was your typical grassroots racer. Loved racing till the day he died. He won one race in his life, and I missed it. I was at my grandparents' up to Watertown. The 1956 Brookfield Fair. He won that. I've still got the trophy on my desk. One thing that came out of him racing at Brookfield, he got to be friends with Pepper Eastman. Pepper quit racing after he won the track title at Monroe County one year. He kind of went down a bad road. My father didn't like that, so he went down and said to him, if you quit drinking and messing around, come to work in the garage with me, I'll build you a race car. So pretty soon he was back in business. By then I was old enough to help. So he raced for us for a few years. We ran out of money. I got Pepper a ride in the number 72 from Albany, which he ended up tipping over at Fonda and got killed, unfortunately, in the turn with a cemetery in it, the third turn at Fonda. By then, my dad had a car for Dick Clark. I turned 16, I was towing the car around, did all the mechanical work, which leads us to our next thing. Back to Ronnie Narducci. We used to race Albany Saratoga Friday, Fonda Saturday, Utica Rome Sunday, and then the All-Star League. The team was Louis Lazaro, Ronnie Narducci, and Dick Clark. 1968, we were the champions. You see the money that people win today for point titles. We got $1,000, which was nice, but we had to hack it up 3 ways. So we got $333 for the point money. One of my favorite memories, we went to Islip. I used to follow Jerry Cook around. I'm a boy from Morrisville. I got no idea how to get to Long Island. So we get on the Long Island Expressway, and I can see the sun in my eyes. I said to my 2 brothers with me, he screwed up. We're going the wrong way. Because when you go on Long Island to the east, the sun's not in your eyes. So all of a sudden, Jerry does a U-turn right across the median on the LIE, and I'm right behind him with the orange hauler. So we get down, unload our cars, Lazaro, Narducci, Jerry Cook, us. All these guys from Long Island are walking around. Ha! What a bunch of farmers. Their cars were all low and shiny and chrome. We were racing 4 nights a week, some weeks 5 if there was a special somewhere. We didn't work on the cars to make them look good, we made them run. So these guys laughed. Here, I dug out the finishing order. Jerry Cook won. Second was Lou Lazaro. Third was Jim Hendrickson. He was the hot dog islip at that time. Fourth was Dick Clark. So we laughed at him, we loaded up, and we went home. We had the money. But that's how the All-Star League was. It just kept going down the road. The guys in the back of my 59 DeSoto were my two brothers. They grew up in that, and then finally we got a ramp truck. They finished growing up in the ramp truck. After a while, my brother Randy decided he wanted to race. So he started in late models, moved into modifieds for his own car. Then he drove for Vecchio. He drove for Joe Norton. Then he drove for my other brother. Randy was track champion at Shangri-La a couple times. He loved Shangri-La. After a while, he didn't love racing as much as he hated winter. So he decided to quit racing. He went to work for NASCAR. First race he was an inspector was a Daytona 500. They had 3 inspection lines. As soon as they found out he was under the cars checking them, all 3 lines turned into one at his door because they knew they had a new guy they could get something over on. So they moved him over to the next bay. And when everybody got there, then they moved him back and forth. By the end of the year, he was working for NASCAR full-time. In 2 years, he ran the garage area, wrote the rule book, and improved all the parts in the tech center. So he did that until he retired. He's going to come talk at Lost Speedways. Going to be fun. He's going to tell about the shocks he took away from Kyle Petty. Kyle came running down, screaming and hollering. Usually they complain you took the parts. Kyle's screaming, "Don't cut them open. It's going to blow up on you." He and Chad Knaus went nose to nose forever. He's got a million tails. He drove the pace car for a long time. So come and listen to him. It'll be worth the trip. We always joked. Randy made the rules. My other brother, Ray, you may know him as Dutch. He builds half the field at Oswego for the small block supers. He's the guy that breaks the rules. He is without a doubt one of the biggest cheats in the history of racing. The problem is guys know he's cheating, but they don't know where and why and how. And we always joked, one guy made the rules, the other guy broke them, and I wrote about it. Next year will be 40 years for me with National Speed Sport News. In the meantime, I wrote hundreds of features for Stock Car Magazine, Open Wheel Magazine. I still do a dozen or so a year for Speed Sport Magazine. I'm still on speedsport.com all the time. I'm 71. My wife's waiting for me to slow down, but it hasn't happened yet. Too much fun going to the races. What I like is all the second and third generation guys now, I know their father back when. For a long time, I was the chairman of the New York State Stock Car Hall of Fame. I loved that because when we came time to vote, a lot of times I was the only guy that had seen the guys race and knew them personally. The other thing I'm involved in, I'm president of the Eastern Motorsport Press Association, which brought me one of my great honors in life. For the last 5 or 6 years, I've been on the voting panel for the NASCAR Hall of Fame. You can't beat going in, sitting down. Last year, the guy next to me was Junior Johnson. We sat and bullshitted about all the things he'd done over the years. You might not be surprised to know he was involved in moonshine a little bit. As he said of Clay Earls, I knew him from a business association before we started racing. Clay owned Martinsville, but he was also in the moonshine business. One year I sat next to Bud Moore. It's a great experience, which I'm going to be sad to give up when I quit being president. That's one thing I'm going to do. On a sideline, usually when guys find out all the stories I've written, they say, "What was your favorite story?" I don't have a favorite story, but I've interviewed guys I never would have got to meet otherwise. Don Garlitz, all the Cup guys, IndyCar guys, almost everybody that drove a stock car around here. Teddy Christopher died yesterday in a plane crash. I was debating whether to tell this story about Teddy, but I think it'll give you a good idea of the kind of guy Teddy was. I did a huge feature on Teddy. The only thing anybody remembers from that is the 3-knock rule. Anybody know what that is? Teddy explained he had a rule, 3 knocks. I'm here. Second one was a little harder. Pick a lane and stay there. The third knock, I'll pick it for you. He'd blast them out of the way. But Teddy was a gentleman. He always gave them 2 warnings before he parked them. The other story that people loved that I wrote, this was a long time ago. Anybody ever hear of Eugene Munger? He's a big burly guy about the size of John from Vermont. Farm mechanic, racer, drove for the Richardsdale Farms up there. The title of the story was, Racing is the Safest Thing I Do. The first bad deal he had, he fell through the ice in Lake Champlain and got fished out. He said he killed a water heater. He was in the shower for about 2 hours trying to get warmed up. But he lived through that. The next thing, he's going about 100 miles an hour on his motorcycle. This is hard to believe, but after working on the race car, he was going to go get a beer. So he's winging it down the road, going to the bar, and a deer comes out in front of him. He hit the deer, went over the handlebars. He had one of these knockoff Simpson helmets. It was good and hard, but the chin strap wasn't where it ought to be, so the helmet flew off. So he banged his head on the road and got road rash. But that wasn't the worst thing that happened to him. He had a really bad day. His wife's boyfriend shot him. They had a little dispute, so his wife's boyfriend pulled out a pistol, and as Eugene said, I was gut shot. So he's laid on the couch. Now you got to remember, this is out in Vermont where they bring daylight in by the truckload because they don't have any. Way out in the tulips. So he's laid on the couch and he was thinking, it's going to be an hour or 2 hours before anybody gets an ambulance here. So he got up, got in the car, said he wasn't going to die on the damn couch, got in the car and drove to the hospital and got sewed up. So Mike Atascavage was my photographer at the time. For the lead picture on the story, we had him hold his fire suit open. Now, Eugene, not being the brightest guy in the world, didn't wear fireproof underwear. So what you saw was all the train tracks where they sewed him back up after his wife's boyfriend shot him. That's the story I like doing. I write about the other guys that nobody else looks at. All the strange characters and unusual people. I've made a career out of it. I've won a lot of awards for it. But I love writing about guys like that. So, the one family, my brother turned out to be a 2-time champion at Shangri-La. They finished every lap of every race one season. We got any mechanics here? Could you change a radiator during the feature? My brother's crew did that one year. They had a big jingle, got a hole in the radiator. My brother, that's the big cheat, he's a hell of a mechanic. Now at Shangri-La, to go in the pits, you go down the front stretch to the flag stand, you take a left, go on the little track, and come back to the third turn. So you don't just zoom down pit road. So they came in, ripped the sheet metal off, made a lap under the yellow at the tail, came in, took the radiator out, made another lap, came in, put the radiator in, went out again. Next time they tightened the clamps, put water in it, put the hood on. They started on the tail and got up in the top 5. But that's how you win championships. Thank God it was a big wreck. My other brother, Ray, the mechanic, he lives on wrecks. He, like I say, he builds half the field at Oswego, which sounds like a good deal. But Sunday morning, after they had a big wreck at Oswego the night before, when he gets up, there might be 8 or 10 trailers out in the yard, all waiting to have the front cut off and a new front put on. So he works like mad. That's what racing people do. The point of my talk is, there's not a lot of kids here, but there's a good way to make a living in racing. You just got to find your niche. My one brother's made a life as an official. My other brother made a life building cars. His son is the #1 body guy for Joe Gibbs. He's under contract. They'll never let him get away. My other nephew works for a parts supplier in Charlotte. My sister was a track photographer at Shangri-La for a long time. I've done very well as a writer. I was a teacher by trade, but I paid for my motorhome with all my writing. And the one thing we talk about at our press association conferences, where are all the new young writers? The first gentleman there saying he did the race reports, but his wife had to type them. Nowadays, if you haven't got it typed and on the internet in about a half an hour, everybody's crabbing you're too slow. I started out calling my stories into New Jersey. A girl would read them, would type them. I'd read them to her, she'd type them. Except for Eddie Panisic and guys like that, she could type as fast as I could talk. Then we went to a Tandy computer with a little bitty screen. Now we're on laptops. Stuff is done 5 or 10 minutes, you're all done. But there's not a lot of people that can write anymore. They think they can write. They can go on the internet and say 5 Mile Point's a shithole. It's all dusty and the guys run into each other and nobody knows what they're doing. Or they can tell you what's wrong with Oswego or Rolling Wheels or anywhere. But if you look, their name's not on it. It's some trick name like Know-It-All or Dirt Expert or something like that. A real writer, their name is on it. Where's Teddy? Am I right? Their name is on it. Their picture's next to the column they write. People like that are in short supply. So tell your daughter, son, granddaughter, grandson, learn how to write. Takes a little work, but it's worthwhile. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it very much.
Yes, indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, Ron Hedger from the great Hedger family. Yes, indeed. Yeah, as a Morrisville student from 70 to 72, I used to see the 16X right on Route 20 all the time. Yes, indeed. Sitting right there in the center of the village of Morrisville. Yep, the great Dick Clark. It was an amazing experience. All right, at this time, I'd like to recognize a man that I don't see very often. And his father was my hero, and he still is too. Ladies and gentlemen, the 67 track champion, the TC9, that's 50 years ago, ladies and gentlemen, right here at Mid-State Speedway. Joe Donahue Jr. is here with us today. And thank everybody. There he is. Yeah, thanks so much to Joe and the Donahue family. We also have the 68 track champion here somewheres. I think he might have snuck out again, Pete Cortez. He was over there by the doorway. But the 69 track champion, of which the original car is also sitting out here, ladies and gentlemen, the Bug, the number 5, driven by the great Buddy Hinman, sitting right over there, folks. The 69 track champion from Waterville. Yes, indeed. And earlier this afternoon, and I don't know if he snuck away or not, but ladies and gentlemen, the track champion from 70 and 71 and 2, the great Mert Sox Holbert was here today. Is he in the house? I don't know. He was here earlier, but yeah, drove the Bruce Carman number 23. Yep, Mert Sox Holbert was here today. And we're certainly glad and fortunate to have these people, you know, come. Many people that came a long, long distance to be here with us today, and we're just overwhelmed. All right, at this time I'm going to call Gary George back up, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce to you a very, very special individual.
Wow, I get the honor of doing inductions 2 this year with 2 great drivers and champions. And Ron Narduzzi, who I did a little bit earlier, I didn't know real well. I got to know him quite a bit over several beers up at Amy's Checkered Flag Bar in Waterloo, and spent a good afternoon there, much to the dismay of my girlfriend, who thought I was talking too much. But anyways, I want to talk a little bit about our next inductee. He is from Little Meadows, Pennsylvania. It's just over the line from New York State, south of Appalachian, and he's lived there he's lived there all his life. And that doesn't say he hasn't been all over the country chasing races. And I did not realize the scope of his racing until I interviewed him a year ago and did a tremendous amount of research on his background. And that's why you see up here on this slide the International Motor Racing Research Center up in Decatur Street at Watkins Glen. A lot of the research background stuff that we put together, myself and a number of other colleagues, about these 2 drivers, so we knew who they were. Eddie Rafferty, well, boy, what a career. He started out on the dirt tracks, obviously down in the southern tier, and run, boy, don't tell him he ran Penn Can. Boy, did I get a lecture on that one day. The phone is still buzzing. It's Susquehanna Speedway, not to be confused with the track down by York, Pennsylvania. But he raced at the Susquehanna Speedway, won a lot of races there, and they called him Crazy Eddie. And I asked him the other day, I said, Eddie, where'd that Crazy Eddie come from? Because I've talked to some of your colleagues that you raced against. He said, wasn't that crazy at all. He said his first car, he put Crazy Ed on it. Sounded good. So he got that nickname. And he went on to do a lot of wins on the dirt, on the short tracks, the bull rings. But he also started concentrating and working his way up into the asphalt division and ran a number of races. Now, how many of you know where Lancaster Speedway is? Okay, I got a lot of, it's right off the thruway. Matter of fact, when you're going down the thruway to the last exit, you pay your toll, and the track is literally right there. But to get around to the track, it's kind of a long way around. So Eddie decided maybe the fastest way is to just go over the edge, and because the pits were right there, and they found a spot. He was with another fella. Maybe he can elaborate that story later if you want to ask him about it. But he drove through there and ended up in the street out there right by the track. So I missed all the traffic in Amherst to get to the track, and he didn't have to pay the toll. So that's one story I can tell. And one of the major things I know about Eddie was his expertise on the big asphalt tracks. I saw him run a number of races. Langhorne in the late 60s, early 70s. Next slide, Bev. When he ran the famous 04 of West German. Now you can see who he's starting next to. This is one of the Trickler brothers. They lined him up in the pits if you ever went to the Race of Champions at Langhorne. And he was running right at the front near the end. And a tire went down, and he took probably the worst tumble he's ever taken in his life. He had a sore back for a long time and a sore neck. And he told me he drank quite a few beers on the way home from Langhorne to take care of the pain. All right? So, and I got one other quick thing to say about Eddie. on his comment sheet that the drivers send back, he had an interesting note. If he could change his life in racing, what would he do? Well, I can't say it here, but entirely. But he said, I would kiss the butt of NASCAR, and I would have been a Daytona 500 star. And I believe that was a possibility. But he was an independent, kind of like Dutch Hogue and a few of the other drivers of that era, that they wanted to run their tracks, and they ran where they could. And NASCAR was very stringent. You had to run their tracks or else. Okay? And Eddie decided that he wasn't going to do that, although he did venture to the south. He ran over at the Metro Speedway in North Carolina, which is a beautiful track if you've ever been there, in a modified car. He ran a lot of different cars in his career, but I always remember this 04, and this is at Langhorne. So at this time, I think I'd like to have Eddie come up with his wife and accept the plaque, your award for inductee this year into the Hall of Fame. And I have one other special award for you.
Congratulations, Eddie. Yes, indeed. Our pleasure.
This guy was well deserving of this. He raced a lot of races and tracks all over the U.S. And I have, when they get the pictures done, I have one more. There's a little frame thing there. Go right, it says "Sly like a fox." I want to give this to you. Some of the research we did about you, this was from 1962 of September. Anybody remember what they were doing? Well, Eddie was tearing up the track down at the Susquehanna Speedway. And the headline in Speed Sport News said, Rafferty crazy like a fox at Susquehanna. And he had a good run, and he won the feature that day. So he knows a lot of the drivers. He knows Ron Narducci, I believe. He knows a lot of the guys. He raced against a lot of these people over the years. And I'll be real honest with you. He drove in a lot of cars that were mediocre, to say the least. So he really did well, and he's deserving of this. And I'm very, very proud, both Ron Narducci and this award today. So congratulations to you. Sly like a fox. I love that. Yeah, come on around up here. Now you can only stay up here 5 minutes or I'll pull you off. Yeah. He likes to talk.
I want to just thank everybody who put this on. This is super great, and I hope you really like it. And the only thing I got to say is, some of you people know Moose Carey. Well, when I first come up here, the track was so dusty I couldn't see the car ahead of me. So Moose said, "You want to know how to drive this track?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You come out number 2. He said, "Count to 10 and turn left. If you don't, you'll be in them pines down there."
Ladies and gentlemen, the great Eddie Rafferty. Yes, indeed. Always a pleasure to watch him. Saw him run many laps down to 5 Mile Point, and always a great, great driver. Well, now, a moment I've been waiting for to introduce a very dear friend of mine that raced here a long time ago. Ladies and gentlemen, if I can have Doug Jackson please come up to the podium. Here's a man that I went to school with. Yes, indeed. He graduated in '69 and I in '70 from the great Gilbertsville Central School. Yep, the old Bulldogs. Yeah, football buddy. Man, I'm telling you. A lot of time has been spent between Doug Jackson and Johnny Mason. That's for sure. Let me read you a little bit about his profile. Doug is now at the young age of 66. He lives in Greene, New York, some of the time, and some of the time he's traveling southbound. His spouse is Cindy, and he's got a couple of other family members here, Michelle and Stacy. Is that right? All right. I know that Jimmy Carr and his sister Donna is over there as well. And the one that most influenced him to race and why was his brother Jimmy. And I understand Jimmy's out west somewheres on vacation somewheres. Unfortunately couldn't make this special day. Jimmy had crashed the car and about every week, and Doug was tired of rebuilding it. So at what age did he start to participate? He was 15. He started driving in 1966 for his family, and a beautiful 57 Chevrolet. Numbers, the great number 82. That was the number. And if you remember way back when his father fielded a car for Bob Wing, it was a pink number 82, I think a 33 coupe. Bob Wing drove for his father, Bob Jackson. What tracks did he compete at? He's been at Midstate here, of course, 5 Mile Point and Rolling Wheels. His first feature win was here at Midstate, and he started racing in '66. He won 2 features. His last race was down at 5 Mile Point back in 1982, and his most memorable moment in racing was a 50-lap memorial race at 5 Mile Point. He finished 4th after leading for 28 of the laps, and he finished in front of the great Jack Johnson. That's quite an accomplishment. His favorite race car driver is Kyle Busch. And one of the toughest competitors here was the late Earl Mewhorter in the great number 23. His Camaro sits out here. His best racing friend, he's with us today, Fred Barse, ladies and gentlemen, sitting right over there. Certainly a lot of wheeling and dealing. And if you remember me standing here and talking about Fred Barse, of course, Fred Barse is Mr. Ford. Well, Mr. Jackson is Mr. Chevrolet. So obviously there was some friction from time to time between those two. And if you remember me telling you about Mr. Barse anxious to beat that Chevrolet anytime that he could, that was the challenge. What's his hobbies now? Well, he enjoys golfing. And would he do anything different? No, certainly he would not. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to introduce to you late model driver of the great number 82, Doug Jackson.
I'm not sure if you left me this late in the program, if it was on purpose. Did you realize how hot it is out there? But you know, every one of us has a purpose in life, and you have John and the dozen other speakers that have been up here, and they were all public speakers. That's probably what they meant to be. I'm still looking for the teleprompter because I'm not a public speaker, and that's not what I was meant to be. And I'm still looking for whatever that is I'm supposed to be. But I'll do the best I can do, and we'll go from there. But the first thing I want to do is, John mentioned, I grew up in Gilbertsville. He grew up in Gilbertsville. And there's a lot of my friends in Gilbertsville. We were all a bunch of young boys and some girls that wanted to go racing, and we did. And I want to thank, there's another gentleman over here, Ed Wilson. Yes, indeed. Eddie Wilson worked many, many tedious nights. My dad did. My brother did. And like John said, every other week we could build a new car for my brother. And some people like working on cars. I happen to enjoy driving them. I was never that good at it, but I did the best we could do. And I'm looking for the real Cal Thurston, because I stopped at Gordy Smith's garage earlier in the week, and Cal was a little nervous and he wasn't sure what he was going to say, and he gets up here for an hour and a half and you can't shut him up. So would the real Cal Thurston please stand up? I don't know where that came from, but we ran the late models here in I also, before I forget this, I want to thank my brother-in-law, Jim Carr. He spent a lot of time working on our race cars. Johnny Mason spent a lot of time helping us. There's a fella out in the doorway, Wayne Van Dusen. A lot of the young kids from Gilbertsville, that's what we did. And we had some good cars at times, and we had so not so good cars at times, but we had a good time. And we won a couple of races over here. Then we went to the modifieds and found out that was a whole different ball game. And we went to 5 Mile Point and went through all of that stuff. And the last car that we had, I bought, in fact, Johnny Mason had it, and my brother Jimmy and his boy, they bought it from him, or he gave it to him, or whatever it was. It was a car that I got from a guy in Oneonta, Rodney Clarkson, and he was a winner when I bought the car. Didn't have a motor in it, and I bought a motor from Pete Cortez, and it was a 427, which was one of the fastest motors. I could see how Pete always did so well. He outclassed us by a lot. And the only thing we didn't realize at that time was Bill Newell was building the steering for all these race cars back in the day. And this thing had like go-kart steering in it. And I'd get in there and that's about the way I looked. And Gordy Smith took it down to 5 Mile Point one time. He wanted to try some dirt, and he did about the same thing that I did. It's just these cars, when they came out with that new steering, was something very, very different. But one of the funny moments for me, I guess, we won a race here, and I think it was the next week or 2 weeks later, I ended up splattered against the grandstand out here with our 56 Chevy. And back then, we really took shoulder harnesses and safety equipment real serious. Well, I ended up with the steering wheel right in my face, and they took me to the Oneonta Fox Hospital, and I ended up with a broken eye socket and 17 stitches. But when the accident happened, I put my hand up like this and covered up my eye. It probably hurt, I don't remember, but I had my hand up here, and the emergency squad came. They bandaged the hell out of my hand. Here's my eye bleeding like crazy. I get to the hospital in Oneonta, and they unwrap the hand, and they're wondering what was wrong with it. So, and there's another one. I saw Ray Canner. Ray Canner standing out here. There he is. Ray and I go back a long ways also. And back when I was about 17 years old, Ray was in the car selling and car building and all kinds of things. And I bought a 62 Chevrolet from Ray, Impala, for a road car, not a race car. I had to go to South Fallsburg to pick up my girlfriend. And I get down to South Fallsburg, and the exhaust system falls off of the car. And I learned a real good lesson. I got arrested. And they pulled me in, and they put me right behind bars. I mean, right behind bars. And they're reading me the riot act, and the guy says, well, I don't know what you hillbillies up north do, but I didn't have the registration or an insurance card. It was on Ray Canner's dealer plates. Well, I call my dad, and he's talking to this judge or whoever it was. And the judge, I heard him say this, I don't care if he stays locked up the rest of his life. Well, take a 17-year-old and listen to that, and I was a little scared. And pretty soon, Ray Canner calls down and talks to whoever was on the phone. And I don't to this day know what Ray said to the guy. But when he got off the phone, he says, we're going to let this guy go now. So Ray, thank you. It was bad, but for me, I want to thank all these young kids, and John Mason's one of them. But I want to tell you a way that a lot of you guys had bought these big motors and high dollar motors and probably had them tested. I was a Chevy guy. John, I don't know what he was, but we would build motors and stuff. Eddie Wilson would help us build these motors. We'd put them in our road car. Johnny Mason had a 58 Chevy at that time. Big 348 I think he had in it. And there was another guy in Gilbertsville, Larry Smith, that had a 59 Ford. and he had the big Ford motor in it. Well, that's the way we tested our motors. We would take them down the highway, and if it was good enough to keep up with John or with Larry, it was good enough for us to go to the racetrack with. So that's kind of the way we tested our motors. And but more than anything, I'm the guy that had the fun. I sat behind the seat, and you get all the glory and all the accolades. But it's these other people out here that work on these cars, and I didn't like doing that. So all these people that helped me out through the years, I thank you. And that's it for me. Thank you, John.
There's a picture on his plaque of the 82, and if you, yep, there's a picture of it. If you take a look, that car was the former 170 of Ray Cawley's that Don Beagle drove. Yep, the Jacksons bought that car, and I've got it pictured out there next to the Stretch 29. There's one shot of it in blue and one shot of it in gold. But when we got that car, it had a Mopar engine in it. Talk about strange. Yeah, we tried to get a Mopar engine to work, and it was heavier than a dinosaur. But one of our greatest moments when we stepped up to the modifieds was to get qualified at 5 Mile Point. And at that time, I mean, these kids today that race, they're guaranteed starters before they even leave the house. They don't have to worry about it. There might be 12 or 15 cars in the pits. When we got down there, it was like 40 for 24 spots. So you had to run. And I'll never forget the night Doug poured on the coal and said, I'm going to be in this thing. And he did it through a consi, and we got into the feature at 5 Mile Point Speedway. We were so excited that we had finally gotten where we wanted to be with this modified with a Mopar engine. It was a wild experience. Go ahead.
I got one more thing I would just like to say. Earlier, Cal Thurston mentioned Gordy Smith and Rusty Smith and now Gordon Smith. Well, this year, Gordy and some people from Oxford got myself and my grandson involved in this racetrack over in Triangle. And they race microds over there, little bitty things like go-karts. And I remember listening, I watch NASCAR all the time except for today, but you heard these stories, Jeff Gordon and Casey Kane and all these people driving these little go-karts and things when they were 5, 6 years old. And I'm thinking, wow, what did they do at 5 or 6 years old? Well, they've got these cars over there. They're not a go-kart, but they are a go-kart. Some of you may already know all about them. But these little 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, they drive the wheels off of these things. You watch them go around the corners, and they're right on the verge of spinning out. And if any of you guys have kids or grandkids or anything like that, that is a super, super way to get kids started. If I'd have had that chance back in, well, a long time ago, they didn't have these back then, but that is a way to get these young kids involved in racing, and you would just be amazed at how talented they are. And my grandson, one of the biggest pleasures I've probably had is my grandson is doing very well. He's his first year, and he had a chance to win 2 features this year, and I'm tickled. So, but thank you all for being here, and my family and everybody else. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
Yeah, Doug's nephew Dwayne still carries the 82, races at Afton every Friday night. Well, it's time for somebody to win a lot of money. And these 2 beautiful young ladies right here have a bundle of cash. So if you'll dig out your 50-50 tickets, ladies and gentlemen, it's showtime. As we always know, somebody's going to go with a pocket full of dough. So hopefully you've got your 50-50 tickets. We've got a volunteer here to pick the winning number. How much money you got in your hands there? How much? $305 to the winner, and we want to thank everybody in advance for participating. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Deb Newell and Barb Clark that did the 50-50s for us. We want to certainly thank them. So here it is, ladies and gentlemen. Are you ready? The first few numbers are 551. Oh, that'll make Eddie Rafferty happy. 551 there. 28. There's a Billy Rose number. And 71. 5512 871. Not me. Oh, here comes the young man that's got the winning ticket. Congratulations. Let me see that. We're going to verify it. Guess what, folks? He's got the right numbers. And what's your name? Jack Knapp. All right. Is that your ticket? Wow. $330. Congratulations, Jack Knapp. There he is. There's your winner. All right. At this time, we'd like to ask Chuck Brownell to come up, please, to present the Johnny McArdell Hall of Famer. And I know my friend Jim Hillmeyer brought in the number 11 coach that you see sitting out there. The beautiful piece. I thank Jim. That's quite a haul. Ladies and gentlemen, Chuck Brownell. There you go.
Thank you. It's not often that you get to honor your childhood idol. Back in 1960, as the drag racing was taking effect, all you guys knew, South Butler, Jackson's Dragway, South Butler was in effect, Destin, Syracuse. And during the week, all the guys would ride around with their cars with the numbers on them. It's like, man, this is great. Got my father to take me over there a couple times, and, oh, this is boring. I'm going to take you to a stock car race. I go, well, what's a stock car race? We're going to Weedsport. Two things I remember about Weedsport Speedway that first night. There was some guy, he drove the Lean and Levin, and he won everything in sight. I think every time he was on the track, he won. It was Johnny McArdell. The second thing I remember is there was a driver, Sam Carista, who flipped in the first turn and went flying out of the car through the windshield. That was the first feat he did. Right. He repeated that feat in the late 60s up to Fulton Speedway. Again, 1960, here's this car they call the Lean and Levin. And until I read an article that Jeff Ackerman just put into the Mid-State Stock Car website, did not realize that the Lean and Levin was not because the Levins were leaning on the side. Dominic Tantello owned that car and had a whole bunch of wedge on the front end of it. So when you see the car coming out of the turns, it was leaning. Bob Rogers, who was the announcer at Waterloo Speedway, nicknamed it the Leaning Levin. In all these years, I thought it was because the Levins were leaning. And I would like to thank Jim Hillmeyer for the excellent job that he did out there on that 11. And John will tell you for about how many years ago I talked to him about making an 11. I still got the motor, still got the body and everything else, and it still sits there. I haven't done it yet. But some year, hopefully. John started racing in 1951 when his brother Gale and he bought a car. And a lot of people don't know that there were 5 McArdell brothers that raced. There was John, Gale, who he bought the first car with, who lost his life at Waterloo Speedway in 1962, Jim, Walt, whose nickname was Butch, and Bill. Bill ran what? 1 race? 2 races? Half a lap? Okay. He says, that's it. I'm not driving. So everybody always thought there was 4 McArdell brothers that raced, including myself, until John told me the story. His first race was in 1952 at Lafayette. he and Gale swapped off driving the car. He'd race it one week, Gale raced it the next. 1955, he had a car of his own for the Weedsport opener. Progressed up through, and again, Dominic Tantello, who won the 11 that raced at Waterloo Speedway, took an interest in John and said, well, you know, Dick Turcotte at the time was racing it, and he says, well, will you come race for me? And they had two cars at that time. John goes out and wins the feature. It's like, well, this is the first feature I ever won. You're wonderful. Will you drive for me? So that started the saga of Dominic Tantello, Johnny McCardle. And I was a participant in this, and I don't know why they did, but Waterloo was 280 cubic inch for flatheads, and Weedsport was 270. Well, anybody in their right mind knows that John was driving the same car at Waterloo that he was at Weedsport. And do you really think that they're going to change motors on a Sunday afternoon? He was winning features right and left. Sammy Reeks would win, not knowing if John Davis and Dominic Tantello had a thing, you know, well, you win one week, I'll win the next, or whatever. All of a sudden, one night, John Davis protests the 11. It's like, well, okay. And myself, I was there until 2 o'clock in the morning with my parents and witnessed this. I think there was more beer drank than there was checking a car, but it was deemed illegal. So Dominic Tantello couldn't bring the 11 anymore. John ended up driving a car for Donnie Narrigan, the 6. Finished out that year, you know, okay, take our things. 1964 came out with the famous sedan that is the replica out there. Really nice car. They did wonderful with it. Ran Canandaigua, Weedsport. Fantastic car. The next year in 65, everybody was changing over overheads. They took the body off the sedan, put a 34 5-window coupe on it. Everybody thought it was a whole new car. Actually, it wasn't. A little lighter, maybe. I don't know what they did, but it always seemed to run a little faster. 1967, John bought Cliff Cotery's 60X and found out what a real light car was because it was made with glider tubing. And it made it demise at, I think it was either Weedsport Front Stretch or Waterloo, one of them. But it wasn't the best car, you know. Syracuse Mile, light, fast, yes, but for the little ones. John basically stayed around central New York, didn't race, you know, down to Morris or went to 5 Mile a couple times, not a lot. But Waterloo, Canandaigua, Weedsport, those things, the flathead era was like John's big time until he got hooked up with the Cincer Bros back in 74 and 75. The cars that John has driven are the Zero, the Cincer Bros Zero, the one of Cam Bruno, the 11 of Tantello, 98 Junior Fisher, 99 of Tony Vitti, 30 his own car, the 6 of Donnie Narrigan, the 51 of himself and John Fireball Roberts, the 111 of Whitey Brazak, and he also listed a 77 and a 31. And those bypassed me. I don't know exactly what they are. Tracks he's raced at was Weedsport, Waterloo, Canandaigua, Rolling Wheels, 5 Mile Point, New York State Fair, Brewerton, Fulton, Oswego, Lancaster, Lafayette, and Spencer. Career highlights, the 1959 Weedsport Speedway Sportsman Award, 1960 Waterloo Track Champion, 1961 Canandaigua Track Champion, 1963 Weedsport Track Champion, 1964 top qualifier at the New York State Fair, the 1964 NASCAR feature winner at the New York State Fair. That was a second race that they had. I think they called the first one for the overheads the Salt City 100. Then they had the sportsman race for the flatheads. That's the race that John won. 1965, he was elected the president of Waterloo Stock Car Racing Association. 1968, he was the Weedsport Track Champion. 1974, the Rolling Wheels Driver of the Year. In 1975, the Rolling Wheels Track Champion. And in 1975, the Skyline Track Championship. In 1995, he was also elected to the Dirt Motorsports Hall of Fame. John is believed to be the only driver to have won the track championship at all four of the big four tracks in central New York: Waterloo, Weedsport, Canandaigua, and Rolling Wheels. Another accomplishment that John came up with, he was nominated by Tom Davis, who was the part owner of Davis Ford. He nominated John at the Living Legends of Auto Racing in Daytona Beach, Florida, where he was inducted on February 15, 2006. And I have been to that induction ceremony. It is a very big honor. A lot of name drivers are there. I got to meet Joe Mihalik. I sat next to him at the dinner. He raced in the Pittsburgh area, NASCAR. The night we were there, I think it was over 400 people at the banquet. So it's quite an accomplishment. And again, you know, I'm very honored to be able to recognize my childhood idol, John McArdle. Thank you.
Oh, have I got the speech you wrote? Let's see. I would like to thank Central New York Stock Car Hall of Fame for the honor. I would also like to congratulate my fellow inductees, Eddie, Butch, Doug, Kyle, and Ron. Although I am in one of the, I wouldn't be here if it's not for the support of a lot of great people. Thank you for my car owner, especially Dominic Tantello and Jim Sensible, who's sitting here today, for giving me a great race car to drive, and for the trust and respect that you always showed me. Thank you to all the pit crew that put in many hours of work, week after week. Thank you to our sponsor and our fans for all your support over the years. I finally would like to thank my family. Without your support, understanding, and sacrifice, this moment wouldn't have happened. Yeah. Anyway, he wrote a whole bunch of stuff. I want to tell you a few stories about, well, getting in the Living Legends at Daytona Beach. It was a great honor. I got to talk to Richard Petty for a while, and then I got to sit next to David Pearson, who was my idol back in the day. And several, I got put in there, and also the Walk of Fame, which I'm in, and Jim Sensible's father is also in there. He built the engines for the Zero. And, well, you've mentioned 5 Mile Point a few times now. Went down there with a flathead and run against the overheads, all of them. Billy Wimble started right side of me. That flathead, well, the first bunker, the guy that owned the track, he said, would you mind starting in the rear because you have a flathead, not an overhead? And Dominic Tantello said, nope, we drew the position, we're going to start there. So we took off, and I was the only flathead in the whole race. But anyway, Billy Wimble kind of pulled ahead of me. I got up by his back tire there. It took me 4 laps, but I got by him with the flathead. Then we went on at the feature. We led it for 80 laps, the feature, and I broke an axle. But that was a big thrill for me to run like that against the overheads. And let's see. I want to thank Jim and Jerry, my daughter Joyce, Jim Horner, Carlos Estrada, and my wife Martha, my that's another daughter out there. But Nabi and Marie and Jan and Al for being here. And it's great when people support you. But I had a great racing career. One year we won 27 features with that 11. On the 3 tracks, we won 27 features. But they built me a great car, and I had a good time in racing. And that's about it, I guess.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the great Johnny McArdle. There he is. Yeah. Leaning 11. I always thought they were candlesticks when I watched him race. I didn't know any different. He was going so fast I couldn't tell. Oh, my. All right. Well, we're getting to the end of the road here, and I've got something that I'd like to present to a person that's very special, and I hope that he didn't run away. Is Ed Wilson out there near and around? Years ago, we paid tribute to the folks that worked so hard at taking care of the racetrack. And obviously, the fire department here locally in Morris did a wonderful job taking care of the racetrack. But on occasion, they would call on the Gilbertsville Fire Department, just 7 miles down the road, to come and help and assist in taking care of the racetrack as well. And I don't know, is Thunder Musson or Ed Wilson out there? If they are, I'd like to have them come in, because those two were instrumental in helping to prepare the racing surface. And we have a special plaque for the Gilbertsville Fire Department, of which I'm the president at this time. So I guess in their absence, I'll accept the plaque. Have you been able to find Ed? Okay, they're on their way. Yep, here comes the great Thunder Musson, ladies and gentlemen, Ray Musson. He drove here for Jim Min, the number 69 coupe, Ford coupe here at Morris. And if you've never met Thunder, then you need to have the opportunity some point. Is Ed Wilson still around? He may have left, okay. Well, on behalf of the Mid-State Antique Stock Car Club, Ray, we'd like to give the Gilbertsville Fire Department, and the emergency squad also was here to help and assist as needed, a plaque for all the work, time, and effort that the Gilbertsville Fire Department members put into it, and I know you were instrumental in doing that. So let me get the plaque. And here's evidence of a picture that shows our old Army truck that has small block Chevy in it. It was a neat piece that these guys built right in the firehouse, and used to use it on any occasion when it was necessary. It was primarily our brush truck at the time. But ladies and gentlemen, the Gilbertsville Fire Department and Ray Musson. Okay, so Rick Perry, if you're near or in the house, it's showtime. I've got your name on the list here for a final award, president of the Mid-State Antique Stock Car Club. Yes, Johnny. Okay, step right up. I'll go chase down Rick Perry if you want to.
Yeah, I wanted to thank my son, Johnny McArdle, John, and what button? And Paul for coming down, my cousin Howard and Joanne, and Jimmy, and who's that? Who's that bald-headed guy back there? But thanks for coming. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And like I said, you were going so fast I couldn't know Pardon me? Yeah, we'd have a request for all the Hall of Famers that were inducted today to stick around for a photograph by this gentleman. And ladies and gentlemen, here's our president of the Mid-State Antique Stock Car Club, Rick Perry.
As in any organization, and you're all members of fire departments, ambulance crews, there's always a lot of time and effort goes into your clubs. And you always have that person that you kind of look for. Last year I come up with the idea of having what I call the President's Award. The President's Award is awarded by the Mid-State Antique Stock Car Club to a person that demonstrated the qualities of honesty, integrity, the passion for the sport of automobile racing, and the infinite love for cars altogether. Without these people, we wouldn't be as successful as we are, putting on shows of this caliber. And this year's recipient, I want to present this award to a guy that goes out of his way for our club, Pete Stafford. Pete's our behind-the-scenes guy. He puts up all the tents, takes them down. He never will take a dime for anything he does. He's just a true hardcore racer. And with this award, I want to present to Pete Stafford. Thank you very much, Pete, for all your dedication and hard work. Nah, leave it out. Be the father and son team.
All right, so this is the moment I know you've been waiting for, the door prizes. And I guess you can take, these look like white tickets, whether they be your 50-50 tickets or whatever tickets they are, I don't know. And we've got a table of door prizes over there. And I don't know exactly how they want to run this. I just thought I'll go ahead and pick them. So, okay, here we go. Get your tickets out. We're ready to go. Are we ready to go? Door prizes? All right. Here we go. Let's do the last 6 numbers. That sounds like Gerald Chamberlain. 7676. Any winners? Joe Donahue. All right, Joe Donahue Jr., ladies and gentlemen, out of Binghamton. Yep. Okay, congratulations, my friend. They're over there on that table, Joe. You can pick, first come, first serve. Yep. There's Joe Donahue Jr., ladies and gentlemen. All right, and the next one is 7510. Last 4 numbers. 7510. No winners? It's hot and muggy, and we're going to move this thing along, so I got 7703 as a door prize winner. Russell Card, did you 7510. Ladies and gentlemen, Russell Card, former figure 8 champion here at Mid-State Speedway. Right there in that funny looking hat. Shake it up a little. Okay. Yep, Russell Card right there, ladies and gentlemen. Here he is. Here's the figure 8 champ. Yep. Yes, sir. Thank you, buddy. Yeah, Russell Card. And by the way, all the chairs that you're sitting in were set up by Russell Card and Brent Cobb. All right, those two came down here, and by Friday morning they said 9 o'clock. I got here at 9 o'clock. They were all set up. These guys came here at 6 o'clock, apparently. All right, here we go. 7703. How's that one? 7703. You got it? Okay. Mr. Cole. Here we go. 6882. There's some favorite numbers of mine. Little Pete Cortez and Joe, or Doug Jackson. 6882. Any luck with that? All right, let's look at another one. 7553. 7553. About to get warm here sooner or later, huh? 7553. All right, young lady, you go right over there and help yourself. Thank you very much. And we certainly want to thank all those that supported and provided us with all these door prizes. I don't have a list of names, but wow, a lot of stuff over there on the table. Okay, we're looking at 2911. 2911. There you go. With a Don Beagle number and a Johnny McArdell number. I've been racing a 4-cylinder lately with number 11 on it. Works pretty good, Johnny. I've been riding around just waving to the crowd, finishing in the top 10. Don't even know what I'm doing. Having fun, though. Here's one, 3176. 3176 for a door prize. Pick your door prize. Let's move on. I'm grabbing another one. Here we go, 7841. Ooh, there's a number. 41. Yeah, if it had the 41 JR after it, oh, everybody knew about that one. The Kennerup 41 JR. No winners on that one. Oh, there we go. Matt Thies, owner of the number 23 out here, the Earl Mewhorter car, and the Street Legal hot rod sitting out there. All right, so Matt's got one. All right. 3176, yep, help yourself. All right, next number up is 3166. 3166. All right, here we go. Shake them up some more. Okay. Now there's a number that some of you may remember, the wild and crazy Billy Northrup. I'm going to try to get him here too. I've got to get him here. He's a former track champion with that 66 DA. All right. You got it. Thank you. There's 3166. All right, next one's 6715. 6715. How close are we? Huh? I don't see too many smiling faces on 6715. No? All right. I hear a rumble. You know, it's amazing when I'm up here goofing around with my cars and there's nobody on the fairgrounds. 6715. Yep, you're right. I can still hear the roar. And I've got plenty of pictures of that fairgrounds grandstands filled to capacity. Kind of neat. Not much has changed. 7408 is the next number. 7408 to the lucky winner. 7408. 7408. Hey, Ed Rothwell. Now you remember this gentleman, don't you? Drove that beautiful number 1. Yep, there he is. Okay, hey, today's your lucky day. Ed Rothwell, ladies and gentlemen, drove the beautiful Chevrolet number 1 late model. Old 59 Chev. Here we go. And 7285. 7285. Is that close? No? I don't see anybody jumping up and down. 7285. Hey, there he's got a chair. Yeah, he's got a chair there now. He can ride around his Model A pickup and park it and then sit in the back. All right, we're moving on. How about 2896? 7285? You got it. Yep, help yourself. 2896, how's that? 2896. Well, I got a lot of tickets in here. Okay, how about 7372? 7372 for a door prize. Here's a winner. And guess who this is? Ladies and gentlemen, this is Smokey, Joe Norton's son, Jeff. Jeff Norton, ladies and gentlemen. There you go. Yes, indeed. Yep. Can't miss him. When you drive through Rockdale, if you look over on the right, there's a door skin hanging there with the scallop on it, just like old Smokey Joe Norton, and number 27. That's where he lives. Yes, indeed. Got the 27 hanging right on the side of the barn. Yep. Okay, here we go. Well, how about 6786? 6786. Any winners on that one? 6786. For you Ray Kennedy fans, that number 67 kind of sticks out in your mind. We'll see if we can get that car back here. I know where it is. It's over in Cortland, but we'll get that car over here. That was track champion here in, I believe, 65. Ray Kennedy out of Decatur. All right. Had the big 6-cylinder in there. Here's 72. Oh, 33. That's one of my favorite numbers. 7233. Yep, a Billy Wimble number. Hey, there's your winner. 7233. Yep. We got 2 of the 33s in town today. Oh, you are. Johnny McCardle's son, ladies and gentlemen. And he's got the winning ticket. Okay, help yourself. How many more we got over there? Oh, golly, still 7. 7716. Now, there's a number you liked, wasn't it? Those of you that were Stan Lupka fans, the 16. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And, yeah. Okay, 7716. No go. Okay. I'll dig out another one. How about 7779? 7779. Any winners on that? 7779. Okay, I don't see anybody jumping up and down on that one. I'll mix them up some more. Here we go. 7589. 7589. Close, but not so close, huh? 7589 for a door prize. Hey, Gary Beagle, ladies and gentlemen, right there. He's got his scooter with him today because he had a little knee work. But certainly want to thank Gary Beagle coming today, even though he's challenged with a knee injury. He's got a scooter that he's anxious to take laps because he said, my right foot is still fine. And I never used the brakes anyway, so, you know. Gary Beagle, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, here we go. The next number. Come on now. How about 7137? 7137. That's the next number that I've got. Okay. I'm going to go in the pile here. We're going to dig around some more. I'll pull out one, and it is 7791. 7791 this time. No? Okay. Okay, let me dig over in this corner. Here's a 2848. 2848. There you go. If you're a Billy Rose fan, as I am, boy, to see that Ford sitting out there with 28 on the doors, hey, don't get any better than that. 2848. Yep, and Larry Witter's 48 sitting out here. Okay, congratulations. Yep, 2848. All right, how we doing on prizes? Oh, we still got lots, don't we? Okay, here we go. 7714. 7714. Any of you that enjoyed watching the late, great Red Harrington? The number 14? Yep, right here at Morris. 7714. No takers on that one, Rascal. Okay, here we go. Next number up, 6966. 6966. That would have been an early one. 6966. Still no takers. All right. Here we go. How about 6725? 6725 for a free door prize. No winners on that? 6725? Wow, getting quite a pile here. All right, how about 7887? 7887. Keep working, okay. We got a winner? Oh, look at this. Okay. Show me your ticket. 7887. 7887, there's your winner. Yep. She's going to have fun looking that stuff over. Yes, indeed. All right, now we're 7749. 7749. 7749. I'm moving on quickly here. 7577. 7577. Oh, these people that left, they're going to be sorry. How about 7815? 7815. Are we? Okay. I see some movement, but I don't see any tickets waving. 7815. Is that Sharon? Sharon Perry, ladies and gentlemen, with 7815. All right, Rick Perry's wife, all the way down here from Bridgewater. Thank you. Yes, indeed, there's 7815. All right, now it looks like 7477. 7477. 7477. Getting any closer? Rats. Okay. Let's keep on going here. I know it's not getting any cooler in here for you. 7870. Oh, here we got another one. Okay. Sharon's got another one. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. All right. Oh, okay. 7477. Yes, she did. All right, so I'm on to 7870. 7870. Any go? 7870. Barb Clark and, okay. Sharon won that again? All right. There it is. Yep, 7870. Yep, Barb Clark. 7381. 7381. How we doing? Hey, Jeff Norton, today's the day, man. You better head towards Turning Stone. Yeah, he's on a hot streak. 7381. He's got it. Okay, good for you. Hey, how about this one? 2751. Wow, 2751. That's a oddball, wasn't it? Okay. Now I'm moving on. Whoop! Here's your winner, maybe. 2751. Yep. There's your winner. 2751. How we doing? We got a few hats down there. They don't seem to be overly popular. I don't know. There's a few more things down there. I'm sure you can use it as a Christmas gift or something. 7125. 7125 is the next one. Oh, come on now. 7125. Okay. No, get her on that one. 7125. How about 3165? 3165. 3165. All right. Hey, we got a winner there. $31.65. He's got it. Yep, today's your lucky day. And you know, I didn't point out, I just keep looking around and I see some greats out here. Don Pierce, ladies and gentlemen, sitting right there, and John Boyce, Roger Beagle, all right, of the Beagle family. Yes, indeed, right here with us. 6742. There it is, Don. 42. 6742. Yeah, how could you go wrong? There's your winner. Looks like Bob Hollick, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, indeed. 6742. My pleasure. 6742, ladies and gentlemen, to Bob Hollick. All right, let me mix them up again. Here we go. Next up is 7864. 7864. 7864. Hey, looks like Wayne Van Dusen. Hey, there's a man that, look at all the tickets he's got. My Lord. 7864. 7864. He won them. Yes, sir. Yeah, his boy drives a truck down at Afton every Friday night. Yep, they're into truck racing. 7416. 7416. Yep, here comes the winner. And Ed Rothwell again. Yeah, you are lucky. I got a funny one to tell you about Ed Rothwell. As many of you know, I teach driver ed and traffic safety education at Norwich, have for the last 37 years. And the kids were following his Model A pickup one day. And they said, Mr. Mason, look at that. He's got a rifle hanging in that truck. You can see it right through the back window. And we were on school grounds. So I said to Ed, the kids wanted me to point out to you that you got a rifle on the school grounds. He was just passing through town, man. You're just going down Midland Lane. Oh, God. Always a few laughs here and there. Yep. But now he's been driving his little MG, so he don't see the truck as much. Hey, we're looking at 6621. Rats, not close enough, huh? 6620.